This is where bushfire threatened lives and property at Mount Osman in the Mount Lofty Ranges on the 11th of January 2005. It's now a completely different environment here compared to what it was that day. It was hot, dry and windy. Fire roared on either side of the southeastern freeway. The normal tranquil sounds of the Australian bush were replaced with the sirens of fire trucks, fixed-wing water bombers and the thumping noise of helicopter rotor blades beating the air. Thick plumes of smoke caused public to panic, creating traffic jams on main arterial roads. As firefighters were responding to the scene of Mount Osman, word had travelled through the ranks that bushfire had caused major devastation on the Eyre Peninsula, killing several people and destroying numerous homes, vehicles and livestock. What must have been going through the minds of firefighters as they arrived here at Mount Osman? Would it be as bad as the Eyre Peninsula? Perhaps a repeat of Ash Wednesday? How could anyone possibly prepare themselves for another event like that? Preparation started on Monday the 10th of January as the Bureau of Meteorology's forecast for Tuesday pointed towards average temperatures around 35 degrees with 40 km/h fresh to strong northwesterly winds. With that in mind, fire bans were issued for the entire state of South Australia. The Fire Danger Index, or FDI, is a figure that is formulated from weather patterns combined with the moisture content of vegetation and is often what determines the forecast for severe fire weather. A Fire Danger Index reading above 50 is considered extreme. By 9 a.m, the FDI had exceeded 50 in many areas across the state. At the Port Lincoln weather observation point, the FDI was above 100 and didn't fall below that figure before 2:30 that afternoon. Fire experts suggest a bushfire at an FDI of 100 is next to impossible to bring under control. Around mid-morning, smouldering embers from a fire that had burnt the previous day at Wangari on the Eyre Peninsula were picked up by 65 km/h northwesterly winds. The fire intensified as it burnt extensive tracts of grassland, scrub and forest. Smoke plumes shadowed the entire lower Eyre Peninsula, turning day into night, adequately portrayed by this satellite photo. It was the 11th hour on the 11th of January when the bushfire hit maximum ferocity. The FDI reached an overwhelming 317, more than 6 times what is normally considered extreme.
The wind was gusting up to 70 kilometres an hour after the wind change. And this is a classic situation where there is no force known to man that can control the fire burning under those conditions.
The inferno caused extensive damage to the towns of Winnilla, Green Patch, White Flat, North Shields, Penindi, Louth Bay, Edelily and Coppio. To air observers, the fire seemed too massive to even contemplate what damage it was causing, but everyone knew that it would be consequential. This was a firestorm like no other. Then another fire, this time on the northern side of the southeastern freeway at Mount Osman, an area that boasts some of the heaviest vegetation and the steeper slopes the Mount Lofty Ranges has to offer. That, combined with the already high FDI readings, was a recipe for a dramatic fire, and in no time at all, the blaze developed its feral character. Spot fires occurred on either side of the freeway, each of them starting in a single tree and quickly spreading to the size of a football field. Close to 1,000 CFS volunteers responded from 72 brigades, as well as numerous other firefighters from the Metropolitan Fire Service and the Department for Environment and Heritage. Aerial water bombers, meteor helicopters and plumes of smoke competed for airspace. The southeastern freeway was closed to traffic, forcing hills dwellers to find alternative ways of getting home. By early afternoon, a wind change caused the fire at Mount Osman to burn back on itself and enable firefighters to gain control of the situation. In total, the fire burned close to 150 hectares of scrub. While 4 vehicles and 3 structures were destroyed, firefighters were directly responsible for saving 22 homes and potentially hundreds of others. It was a commendable save. As firefighters breathed a sigh of relief, the smoke began to clear on the Eyre Peninsula. The devastation was immense. Not since Ash Wednesday 1983 had Australia seen such tragedy caused by bushfire. The New South Wales Rural Fire Service offered their line scan aircraft to provide an accurate picture of where the fire had spread. By the time the inferno was contained, nearly 24 hours later, it had burnt 77,964 hectares. Much of the area's infrastructure was also damaged, with almost 25 kilometres of the Todd and Lincoln highways needing to be resurfaced due to heat damage. Several kilometres of water pipeline also buckled and burst under the extreme radiant heat. But no one felt the heat more than the local firefighters on the ground. Many of the 1,000 or more firefighters who responded to the call for help fulfilled their duty while fire ravaged their own properties. Many returned to find that their entire livelihood had crumbled. It was the very next day that the CFS Chief Officer, Ewan Ferguson, visited the Eyre Peninsula with SA Premier Mike Rann and Minister for Emergency Services, Patrick Conlon.
This is, one of the bleakest days in the history of South Australia.
And so the relief effort began. A commitment made by both the state and federal governments eased the financial burden now placed on Eyre Peninsula residents. Australians, still reacting from the devastation caused by the tsunami in the Indian Ocean just 2 weeks before, dug deeper in their pockets to donate several $100,000 to Eyre Peninsula victims. The Eyre Peninsula community is well on its way to recovery, but the reality of the events of January 11 will be felt for some time. The now lunar landscape that was once fields of lush grasslands and native vegetation serves as a constant reminder. While no one can deny the tragedy of the Eyre Peninsula bushfire, the heroic efforts and miraculous stories of survival must not be overlooked. Many people, including firefighters, were just seconds away from losing their own life. While 93 homes were lost in the Eyre Peninsula fires, 262 escaped damage. 237 farm sheds were also destroyed, but a further 982 were unscathed. An entire generation change has occurred since the Ash Wednesday bushfires of 1983. On January 11, it was the first time many CFS members experienced such devastation caused by bushfire. On that day and those that followed, the CFS were ordinary people under extraordinary circumstances. The events of that day attracted international media attention. Many reporters from across the globe found it difficult to comprehend that CFS firefighters are actually volunteers. Many things have occurred as a direct result of the January 11 bushfires. The SA Police has commenced a coronial investigation. The Bushfire Cooperative Research Centre has been engaged to report on the bushfire's progression, how structures were damaged, and how the community responded to emergency warnings. Within the CFS, many debriefs have occurred and reviews of emergency management plans are taking place. At the conclusion of the investigations, the outcomes and recommendations will be collated to capture all of the issues identified and to prioritise actions for change. This tragedy must be approached with humility, a gratefulness to those who risked everything and a willingness to become wiser with what has been learnt.